Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. There are people still joining us, but we'll go ahead and get started. We will be here not a very long time, but this is an important discussion. And so we are happy to have you all here with our wonderful guests tonight. My name is Lenore Simmons. I am the Political Action Committee Chair for the Fairfax County NAACP. And it is a pleasure to welcome you tonight to this community conversation. Our state and local governments have a more direct and frequent impact on our daily lives than the federal government, especially in the areas of voting policy, health, education, criminal justice, and business regulations. Many critical decisions, such as school funding, public health measures, and local policing, are made at the state and local level, often during elections that are off cycle or where there is low voter turnout. It's important that we all remember that all elections are important, and every election is an opportunity for individuals to make their voices heard and advocate for the changes that they wish to see. On November 4th, we will have the opportunity to vote for our Virginia governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and all 100 members of the House of Delegates, including many seats in Fairfax County. We are lucky tonight to hear from some dynamic leaders and community partners who will share their strong advocacy beliefs, which mirror our own. In addition, we will hear from our fabulous Fairfax County advocacy chairs who will share what's on the ballot, what's at stake, and why your vote matters in this upcoming general election. We will be moving pretty quickly. Our speakers will have 3 to 5 minutes to speak, and then we will continue through the program. You are muted. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to place them in the chat, and we'll be providing information on our speakers at the end or in a follow-up email. So thank you for joining us again, and I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Miss Andrea Miller. I'm sorry, Miss Crystal Jones, who is I'm sorry, I'm a little off because we're waiting for a few more people, who is the co-convenor of the Black Women's Roundtable in Virginia. Thank you, Krysta.
Thank you so much. Good evening, and thank you all for being here this evening. When we think about the 2025 elections in Virginia, while they are very important, we must get into the mindset that every single election is important and there really is no election season. I know you all have heard every year, this is the most consequential election. We said it last year, we said it in 2020, and we're going to say it forever. But for Virginia's election on November 4th, as you know, we'll elect a governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, delegates, and local government officials. But most of the country right now is beginning to focus on the midterm elections since Virginia has off-year elections or elections every year. So we all know that what happens in Virginia all year round impacts the rest of the nation. So the organizing we are doing here, forums like this, candidate forums, get out the vote, how we vote, the polling that comes out of Virginia, the statements that are quoted from leaders and activists that are covered in news across the nation will have an impact not only on November 4th and in Virginia, but also beyond and across the nation. Other states and candidates look to what happens in Virginia, whether it's GOTV strategies or issues. So for example, this year, economy for a lot of people is at the top of the list, or the federal cuts, to see how they might navigate their races and elections. But there are other issues on people's minds. I think it's important to note that while Virginia has a long way to go, it is organizations like yours and activists like you who have helped advance progressive policies and ward off attempts to take our country backwards. Many of the conversations that we are able to have today, whether it's early voting or pre-registration for 16-year-olds, were not on the table too long ago. Despite our advancements, it's obvious that 2025 and beyond will be much different. This is a new game with new rules, and it requires a new playbook. And I have to say, I'm saying some of the similar comments that I said in 2023, and in 2025, this seems even more real today. I don't have to remind you about the attacks on our democracy, voting rights, erasing and changing history in several states, book bans, and the dysfunction in Congress and the White House. But we must do things differently. We cannot continue to do the same thing and expect different results. Long gone is the day when we could check the box by standing in front of a grocery store to register voters and think that that was enough. First of all, we can no longer be reactive. We must be strategic and think past 2025. While we recognize this is a very important election, we have got to think past this year. What are the real-time impacts of our votes in November? What will it mean if certain messages prevail and others don't? What does that in turn mean for the 2026 midterm elections or the 2028 elections? How will education about the census impact the next round of redistricting, which may come sooner than we want? Even though many of us are C3 nonpartisan organizations, we have got to have an understanding of the context that we are operating in. Recent polling research by HIT Strategies found that, and this was actually done last month in both, there were focus groups with Black voters both in Virginia and New Jersey, because as you know, we are the two states who have gubernatorial elections this year. Black voters' political mood is broadly negative across all groups, marked by pain, fear, and abandonment in the face of clear and present threats to the things that they care about. Number two, Black voters are acutely aware of how federal government actions will disproportionately harm us. Number three, there is a growing urgency to resist against efforts that harm the Black community, but fear of risk prevents most Black respondents from resisting publicly. Number four, highlighting the actions of federal government actors that harm the Black community can mobilize voters. Number five, Black voters expect stronger resistance from elected officials and civic organizations. Let me say that again, because that was a very important point of their analysis. Black voters are expecting a stronger resistance from elected leaders and civic organizations. And number six, Black voters can be encouraged to take lower resistance actions. As I've said before, in 2022, we also had some really interesting research about power in Black voters. Increasing Black political participation requires us to increase Black power. So people have to feel like they have power. And when we stand up and resist as organizations and leaders, we can help mobilize that. If we are silent, we're not going to help them realize their power. There are different types of power: electoral power, the ability to elect officials that represent our community experience and our priorities, and then show the outcomes, which is extremely important. Negotiating power, the ability to negotiate with elected officials that you have elected to move them closer to your position after Election Day. Remember, our power does not end on Election Day. Accountability and protest power, the ability to hold elected officials accountable while they are in office. And then punitive power, the ability to collectively fire elected officials that do not satisfy the expectation of the job they were expected to do. We must fix our democracy, not defend it now. And we must stand up visibly and boldly and courageously as advocates and leaders. The rules have changed. What are you willing to do to change in order to save our communities? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krysta, for those great words. We will next hear from Levi Goren. They are from the Commonwealth Institute, where they serve as the Director of Research and Education and Policy. And I'm going to stop sharing so that you may share your slides. Let's see.
Sorry, I had a little bit of trouble unmuting myself.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. So thanks so much for having me tonight and for all the great work that you're doing. I'm with the Commonwealth Institute, and we believe that we can work with great organizations like yours to advance racial and economic justice in Virginia. I am here to talk about education policy, and I think it's really important to note that where we are today is the result of a legacy of struggle as well as backlash, much of it led by Black teachers and parents and students. And we did a little timeline about some of that history, which you can find on our website, or if you can scan the QR code, that's another way to get to it. I think we do think that this year, coming year in Virginia, depending on the election results, there is a significant opportunity to make things better for Virginia students. We have the potential to be a national model of what can it look like to make positive progress while also stopping the really harmful stuff that's coming down from the federal government. What is it that we want? We think we can achieve a Commonwealth where every community has high quality public schools where children can thrive. Unfortunately, we're not there right now. National researchers are giving us D and C grades in our funding adequacy and equity. That's not good enough for our students. So TCI works with the Fund Our Schools Coalition a lot in this work, so you're welcome to look them up as well to get an idea of some of the work we're doing with partners. And this coming year, we're really focused on making sure the state pays its fair share of school costs, because we know that money matters for student outcomes, and that's particularly true for students from low-income families. We want to particularly, therefore, improve funding for students facing the highest barriers. That we hear a lot from community partners about the need to invest in safe and restorative environments, mental health supports, and community involvement. So that's also a priority for us. And we know that all of this costs money. So we need to resource our schools through revenue fixes to make sure that we have the money to do all these good things. It is possible to make improvements, even when it can sometimes feel hard. So over the last 4 years, with great partnership from the legislature, and many of those folks who were champions are pictured here, we've made some significant improvements in state support for students in low-income communities, English language learner students, and in teacher salaries. And this slide just shows how, things really did get worse during the Great Recession, and our students are still feeling that because we know that lack of resources can be cumulative. And if you don't get a good education in second grade, you might not be, in a good position in eighth grade to be learning. But the good news is we are trying to and succeeding somewhat in turning that around with help from the legislature and lots of work by advocates around the state. On the other side, we do think there's some potential threats in the coming years, depending on what happens. We could have another conversation where people push private school vouchers right here in Virginia, as well as the federal level. We know there's a lot of negative outcomes from those vouchers, and they take money away that's needed to improve our public schools. And we also could see more of the exclusionary curriculum proposals and policies that, unfortunately, we've seen some here from the executive branch in the last 4 years. So that is education in 3 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Levi. I apologize having trouble getting my mute off. Thanks so much for sharing all of that great information with us. We will now hear from Ting Waymouth. She is the Northern Virginia organizer for the Chesapeake Climate Action Network.
Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be with you all this evening. I know I'm getting pinned momentarily. Great. My name is Ting Waymouth. I am the Northern Virginia organizer from the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, also known as CCAN. CCAN does work all across the DMV as well as at the federal level. But my work focuses primarily at the state and local levels, organizing and mobilizing people to take action, ranging from lobbying their legislators to canvassing and phone banking for climate candidates, to writing letters to the editor, to pulling invasive vines to save trees. CCAN and our C4 sister organization, CCAN Action Fund, organize communities to advocate for environmental and climate justice. A lot of the time, that means fighting back when polluters propose toxic and costly energy projects that harm our communities. Right now, Dominion Energy, our electric utility company in Fairfax County, is proposing 6 massive new gas plants. We're seeing private companies and other utilities propose other big new fossil fuel infrastructure projects as well. And we know why this is happening. The data center industry is requesting jaw-dropping amounts of electricity. This is energy infrastructure that will further drive global warming, have tangible health impacts in the communities where they're sited, and the costs will ultimately fall on everyday families through their monthly energy bills. So there are three main overarching issues here that we are trying to tackle. One, we need to stop the build out of new fossil fuel infrastructure. The state legislature writes the rules for our regulators on how to make decisions about whether to approve energy projects. They also write the rules regarding whether or not monopoly utilities can buy access and influence, and they directly appoint regulators. These elections will have a big indirect impact on the regulatory space governing what our energy future looks like and what we pay for electricity. The second thing, we cannot allow big tech to get away with driving investment in new, dirty gas infrastructure. And then, to add insult to injury, making ratepayers pay for the energy infrastructure that big tech needs. Holding the data center industry accountable such that they rely on clean energy, have to be energy efficient, and pay for their own energy infrastructure is a major priority for CCAN and CCAN Action Fund. And finally, to prevent energy costs from further ballooning region-wide and meet projected demand with clean energy, Virginia needs to have a lot of clean energy infrastructure. That means solar, wind, and battery storage primarily. Right now, over 55 counties in Virginia have prohibitive local ordinances that ban or severely restrict solar development. We cannot achieve a 100% clean energy future or an affordable energy future without opening the door to more low-cost solar, which is the cheapest electricity resource overall at this point. So we're advocating to reform the siting process to ensure that we can build the clean energy we need. And that is it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ting. We appreciate your views and tonight, and thank you for taking the time to share them with us.
Absolutely.
Next, we will hear from Miss Virginia Diamond. She is the president of the Northern Virginia Labor Federation, AFL-CIO.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I want to thank the NAACP Fairfax County for your partnership. We've been great partners, and we look forward to continuing to work together. I'm the president of the Northern Virginia AFL-CIO, so we represent all workers in every sector of the economy, from machinists and construction workers and teachers and flight attendants and pilots and doctors and nurses and writers and actors and construction workers, and everybody that works for a living has a place within the labor movement. Our priority is to ensure that workers are empowered so that they can have a say in their wages, hours, and working conditions. So when workers have unions, they earn more money, they have better benefits, they have better working conditions, and most importantly, they have respect and dignity on the job and have a voice. So historically, over the past 30 or 40 years, there has been a catastrophic decline in unionization in our country. There's been a concerted effort by corporate leaders and with acquiescence by political leaders in both parties, honestly, to allow the demise and the decline of unionization. And when we had strong unions in this country, we had 35% of workers in the private industry were in unions. At that point, we had a middle class, we had good wages, and we had CEOs were earning maybe 20 times what a typical worker would make. Over the past 40 years, that number of 35% has declined now to below 6%, and it has declined steadily. So it's continuing to decline. And we're facing the point where unionization in the private sector won't survive. The primary reason is that our laws don't protect the right of workers to form unions. Workers would like to be in unions. They would like to engage in collective bargaining. But when they try to organize, there are no penalties for the employer to fire them, to discipline them, to refuse to bargain. And so for those of you familiar with the Starbucks campaign, which I was very involved in organizing stores here, those worked, all the leaders in the stores were fired. They were never given a contract. They never got the same wages as the union stores. And so Amazon, same thing. We don't have the right in this country for workers to join unions in the private sector. So what we're looking for from our state and local officials is to support the right of workers to have unions, because we don't think we can have a democracy with incredible concentration of wealth that we now have that hasn't existed for 100 years. So we are very disappointed that the gubernatorial candidate of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, neither one supports the repeal of the right to work law. That is the ultimate symbol of destruction of unions. And so we could not endorse Spanberger. We hope that we can convince more political leaders to understand the importance of unions. And we look forward to getting the support from all of you here to fight to repeal the right to work law, which was founded in a Jim Crow segregationist white supremacy effort. So thank you for your attention.
And thank you, Ms. Diamond, for joining us this evening. We will now hear from Ms. Kim Sudderth, who is the policy consultant with the Virginia Interfaith Power and Light.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be here with you all tonight to talk about something that is both ancient and urgent, our call to care for creation, both the earth and one another. My name is Kim Sudderth, and I'm the policy consultant for Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Virginia Interfaith Power and Light envisions overcoming the climate crisis, eradicating environmental and social injustices, and living in a just, thriving, and equitable world. We aim to do this by collaborating with people of faith and conscience to grow healthy communities by advancing climate and environmental justice. Environmental justice is not just about air, water, or land. It's about people. It's about whether every child has the right to breathe clean air, drink safe water, and live in a neighborhood free from toxic burdens. And too often, we know that it is Black, brown, and poor communities who bear the brunt of environmental harm. But this work we call environmental justice is not new for us. The Black church has always been at the center of social movements for freedom and dignity. Our ancestors built a theology of liberation from the plantation to the pulpit, insisting that God cares about justice here and now, just as in the hereafter. And when we march for civil rights, we're caring for creation because we're fighting for the flourishings of God's most precious creation, that's humanity. Psalm 24:1 reminds us that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. That means we are stewards, not owners. We are called to tend the garden, to protect not only the soil that feeds us, but also the communities where we live, learn, work, and pray. Caring for creation is caring for our future. It makes sure our elders are safe from flooding in their neighborhoods. It makes sure that our children don't miss school because of asthma from polluted air. It's making sure no community is treated as disposable. And one of the most powerful tools we have to protect creation is our vote. When we vote, we choose leaders who set policies on clean energy, climate resistance, and public health. We have the power to make sure our values around justice and stewardship and care for our most vulnerable neighbors are reflected at the ballot box. So my invitation to you is this. Let's widen the circle of our justice work to include the earth that sustains us. When we fight for fair housing, we also fight for healthy neighborhoods. When we demand economic justice, we must demand green jobs and clean energy that won't poison our people. This is what we call creation care, because when creation thrives, we thrive. And when we fight for the earth, we're fighting for ourselves, our faith, and our future. Thank you very much for having me today, this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your inspirational words. We appreciate it. Next, we will hear from Miss Kimberly Ginyard. She is the Social Action Committee Chair of the Fairfax County Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated.
Thank you so much, Ms. Simmons. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to hear all that's going on in this room. And it speaks to a lot of what we're doing. So first of all, I am Kimberly Ginyard, the Chair of Social Action, as Lenore has mentioned. But as members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we have always been about advocacy. It's at the heart of our mission and what we do. And in this election season, our role as advocates is more important than ever. Actually, having a pen, I was at Mason today, not just to promote one candidate or one party, but to ensure that the community is informed, empowered, and equipped to make their voices heard. We are always and will always be proudly nonpartisan, but ensuring that we are equipping individuals to make the best decision when it comes to voting. So why this election season is important? We have statewide leadership. As it's been said on this call, on November the 4th, Virginians will elect a new governor, a lieutenant governor, attorney general, and members of the House of Delegates. These offices will set the tone for policies that affect education, public safety, health, and civil rights for the next few years. Again, it's been said on this call. Local impact for Fairfax County. We're also facing key ballot measures, such as with the Fairfax County Public School, the bond referendum of $460 million for school improvement, construction, and facilities. These decisions directly affect our children's learning environment and the community infrastructure as well. Then we also have the cost of living and essential services, rising cost, housing, taxes, utilities. There are top concerns for families within the community. So issues like these for the local government budgets are how they're managed, especially the budget deficit and how tax policy influence affordability are very, very much on people's minds. Rights under pressure, we already know, we've heard it here, the reproductive rights, voting rights, protection for marginalized community remains central. And policies made or defended by those elected will shape access to health, equal treatment, justice in our schools and in our community. And most importantly, we are at a bellwether year with only a few states holding major elections this year, including Virginia. What happens here is being watched. So the outcomes of where we are will help signal broader policies and political trends across the country. So with us, as a chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we are focusing on educational equity, which we are hosting a program. So it was exciting to hear several of you, which I will reach out to. And this is a bond referendum, that Fairfax is directly about resources for school, facility quality, access, ensuring safe environments. We also know that Youngkin has passed the AP bill, so we will be having speakers that will talk about equitable education. Also, health equity, again, we just talked about it as a major concern. Everything from maternal health care to Medicaid being gone, SNAP benefits being gone. So we want to make sure that our wellness is tied to those who we elect that support and how those policies intact. And then we have public safety, criminal justice, from how law enforcement is funded, how justice is administered to ensuring safe neighborhoods. And these are only influenced by the state level leadership and local governments. And then voting rights. I was out to George Mason today, had an amazing time partnering with the League of Women Voters, but we have to ensure that there are no unreasonable barriers to voting and guaranteeing those that are on the ballot, that they are made, those that are going to vote for those on the ballot, that they are made very well assured of what they're voting for, what redistricting looks like, is it fair, what's our polling station? And most importantly, we just talked about it from the economic justice, environmental justice, and gender equality, how economic opportunity is distributed, from equal pay, these data centers, I plan on talking about that next year, and what workforce protection looks like. And with the majority of the federal government and DOGE that has laid off, we have about about 7% of African Americans that are out, but also people that are out. So again, these are all shaped when it comes to legislation and when the officials are elected in this particular cycle. So our commitment to this, and thank you for this partnership with the NAACP, is that we will share voter guides, clearly explaining what's on the ballot, who the candidates are, what offices they're up for. We just, was able to do that with the replacement seat for Senator Connolly, Representative Connolly. We will also hold informational sessions. Again, we have the educational equity program that will be presented across the state of Virginia. It will be virtual, so we will certainly hand that out. And you will have experts that you can ask these questions about, getting trustworthy answers so that you're informed when you go to the polls. And then lastly, we will circulate nonpartisan materials so that every voter, regardless of their affiliation, have what they need to cast that vote. So again, for us, advocacy is not just about speaking, but it's about equipping. It's about ensuring that our neighbors, our congregants, our colleagues, our families, they walk into these voting polls knowing that they're confident, they have clarity and purpose. So this election is more important than ever. And it's more important than just the names on the ballots. It's about the kind of communities we want to live in. It's about making sure our priorities for education, health, equity, justice are protected and advanced. So together with this and groups like this, certainly there's a lot of talent in the room. I look forward to partnering with each of you. And again, we have to remind individuals that it starts on the local level. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ginyard. Looking forward to the exciting things that you all have coming forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Ms. Andrea Miller. I'm going to pin her real quick. She is the founding board member of the Center for Common Ground. She's the executive director of People Demanding Action. And she is the founding president of the National Women's Political Caucus of Virginia. We have a powerhouse in the room, and we're so excited to have her here today. Ms. Miller.
Thank you very, very much. I am delighted to be here with you. There are very few people where you could pull me away from watching Abigail Spanberger on TV, but here I am. So anyway, what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about again, the importance of this election. I cannot stress how important this election is. We will make history in Virginia because Virginia will have a woman governor. But what is really, really important is what will that woman represent? Now, the budget bill that they passed in DC, yes, we are going to have significantly less money in SNAP. That means Virginians will be going hungry. And as we know at the NAACP, people who look like us, we are generally hurt first and worst. We also know that the Affordable Care Act subsidies are gone, and the insurance companies, health insurance companies, are already raising rates. And the rate increase in Virginia will be between 21 and 23%. We already know that because the insurance companies have already filed for the rate increases, which will go into effect January of 2026, not January of 2027. Health insurance companies do not lose money. So it is critical that in this election, we show up as a people. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. Early voting starts on Friday, and my husband and I, we will be, as we always are every year, number 5 and 6, voting early in Caroline County. Now, when I look at what the State Board of Election puts up there for showing us our early voting locations, it is sad, it is pathetic, and if I wasn't so busy, I would sue them. Because unlike Georgia and even Texas, and North Carolina. We don't list all the early voting information on one page. Sure, they now have a cool little drop down where you can see your county, but if you want to see when the early voting locations are actually open, you want to see Saturday voting, or do they have Sunday voting? Nope, that's not available. So we put together an early voting list where all 133 counties are there, as are every single early voting location that they have, the date and the time that they are open, when they have Saturday voting, and if they have Sunday voting, along with a phone number. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers that potentially are going to make you very, very uncomfortable. The first number is a great number. Right now, today, we have 894,000 registered Black voters. So kudos to every organization that is out there registering voters. It is critical that voters understand voter registration is step one of a two-part process. We don't want people to register to vote. We want people to register and vote. For those who work with college students and on college campuses, it is critical that we get those young people to the polling places early. Don't let them sit there and wait until election day where they can show up, not be registered, and not know their social security number. We need to get all that resolved early, because when I look at the 2023 election and I look at the Black voter turnout, now there were significantly less Black voters, registered Black voters in 2023. In 2023, there were only 880,000 registered Black voters. In 2023, only 297,000 of them showed up to vote. We can't have that. We did better in 2024. That's a presidential election. Again, there's 880,000. 569,000 showed up. That means 300,000 of us were missing in action. Democracy is a participatory sport, and it is really critical in these times to understand that if you somehow lose your ability to get it back, to vote, you may not be able to get it back. So we will get our voters out to exercise their right to vote, because we want to remain a democracy and we want to be in charge of our choices. And we need to turn around this. We are hurt first and worst. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Always with the numbers, we could not be happier to get this information tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. And I guess you can go back and finish watching. Andrea, so thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will now hear from some leaders of our branch, the Fairfax County NAACP chapter. Up first will be Mr. Marquis Smith. He is the co-chair of our education committee. I'm sorry, Marcus Smalls. Tiny print, Marcus, I apologize. And I need to make you a co-host so that you can unmute yourself and let us, there you are.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Just to update you on what the Advocacy Committee of the Education Committee is focused on now. We have our next State of the Schools forum held with Dr. Reed, scheduled for December 14th. Well, actually, no, take that back. December 15th. We're actually doing our prep for it on December 14th. Sorry about the confusion. So we are now securing a location that can be secure and safe for all participants. And we will get the word out through our marketing department of the NAACP to let you know where that event will be held, but it is on the calendar for December 15th, where we'll be meeting with the superintendent of schools in Fairfax County Public Schools, Dr. Michelle Reed. Our other main focus of our advocacy right now is also to just continue to increase literacy and math rates for students throughout the county, K through 12, and also continue to put students on the path to college. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Smalls, for joining us tonight. Up next, we will hear from Mr. Matthew Sowd. He is the co-chair of our Criminal Justice Committee.
Hey, everyone. As Lenore said, I'm co-chair of the Criminal Justice Committee along with Pratik Karat. The Criminal Justice Committee supports more fair and equitable policing and court systems, increase in diversion from jail and prisons, more humane and rehabilitative sentencing and incarceration, and removing barriers to reentry for formerly incarcerated individuals.
Asking people to do that.
And so I just want to share a few specific areas where we think the outcome of this election could determine whether the progress is made in the next General Assembly on criminal justice reform. First, we support the proposed Virginia constitutional amendment for automatic voting rights restoration. Basically, this amendment would restore voting rights for individuals with felony convictions after they are released from prison. Virginia is one of 3 remaining Confederate states whose constitution still permanently takes away the right to vote for all returning citizens with past felony convictions. It's estimated that this disqualifies 9.8% of Virginia's voting age Black residents from participating in elections. The way the Virginia amendment process works is an amendment has to pass twice in the General Assembly, and those 2 votes have to be separated by an election. So this is the election between those 2 votes. And then following the second vote, there'll be a referendum by the voters. So the first approval has happened, and now it's kind of critical that we support candidates who support this amendment, because if it doesn't pass in this upcoming General Assembly, this process will have to start all over again. It's really important that we extend voting rights to all the people who were formerly convicted of felonies. Next, we also support making it easier for people with arrest records and who were incarcerated to find housing and employment. Finding stable employment is crucial to ensuring that individuals do not reoffend. Having a record reduces the likelihood of a job callback or offer by as much as 50%. Inability to reintegrate individuals leads to recidivism, not only leads to recidivism, but also prevents people from fulfilling their potential as family members, friends, and citizens. In addition, in pure dollars and cents, the burdens of these barriers place on so many Virginians, particularly people of color, reduced employment for the millions of people with records cost America $78 to $87 billion each year. Finally, we'd like to see Section 18.2-57C of the Virginia Code be amended. This law deals with the assault and/or battery of law enforcement officers and carries an automatic felony charge and at least a mandatory 6-month prison sentence. The issue with this is most instances of assault on law enforcement officers, according to Virginia State Police, do not actually result in any injury. This law has been weaponized to charge individuals with a felony for the brushing of an arm, the tugging of a shirt, or even the alleged attempt to touch an officer. This gives officers and prosecutors enormous power to threaten a felony charge, leading to unfair sentences and forced plea deals. This disproportionately affects people of color, those in mental crises, and those with disabilities. And we really hope this, code section will be amended to be only, act on actual assaults on officers when it's amended. Thank you for your time and consideration of these issues.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing that great information. We will next hear from Ms. Mary Patton. She is the chair of our Housing Committee. Uh-oh, just a second. I'm sorry, Mary. I need to make you a co-host so you can unmute yourself. Okay, try it now, please. Oh, there you go.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about affordable housing and how that's on the ballot in Virginia. It is indeed, one candidate doesn't mention it at all, but promises to cut taxes so people can get housing. And the other one has a kind of full plate of regular affordable housing remedies that are endorsed by many different organizations. Just to give a sense of how big a problem this is in Virginia, I looked at the data from the National Low Income Affordable Housing Coalition, which really tracks well on all the federal legislation and also gets people into tenant organizing and all other aspects of affordable housing. So how affordable housing is depends on how much money you make, and it's based on the area median income. That's 100% area median income, means that half the people in the area make less than you and the other half make more than you. So in Fairfax County, I think that's around $150,000 for a family right now. 30% of your income, especially if you're lower income, but 30% of your income is designated for housing and doing a financial plan. So at 100% of AMI, there's about, in Virginia, there's about 103 units available for every 100 people at that level. So you can look hard, but you can probably find something. You hope those units are somewhere you can find them. If you make 80% of the AMI, there's about 95 units available to you at a 30% of your income. So that's a little bit harder. Some people aren't going to get them. If you make 50% of the AMI, there's only 52% of housing units available for you. And if you're extremely low income, that's like less than 30%, there's only 33 units out there for you. So there's a lot of people who just have no place to house unless they pay a whole lot more of their rent for housing. And that always doesn't work because the people, they're kind of crowded out already by the people paying 30% of the rent. So it's very difficult to find housing, especially for lower income people. And lower income people are much more hurt if they pay more than 30% of the rent, because what's left over has to go for food and transportation and healthcare, school stuff. You know, it's just not enough to get by on. So they have extremely low income people. About 77% of them in Virginia are extremely burdened in terms of their housing. That means they pay way too much, way over 33%, if they can find it. If they can find it. What happens, people start to double up, they move away into less costly areas, or they become homeless. A lot of people who are homeless, they're homeless because they don't have a place to live. So they did a diagram on the extremely low income renter households, and 39% of them are in the labor force, 17% are disabled, and 28% are seniors. And the other 20% are one of a variety of things. But most of the people in that lower income area can't really work at a high level wage. So a lot of people say what we have to do is just build more housing and it'll trickle down, that the new housing, that people in the 1-year-old housing will move into the brand new housing, and the people in the 10-year-old housing will move into the upper housing and the people in the very low will have many places opened up where they can get housing. But we did a survey with CoStar, which keeps track of all the commercial residential developments. And there's just nothing on the market of any age for people under, say, 50%, 40-50% of AMI. You just cannot buy a commercial, rent a commercial apartment. It's just not there. So there's a big area for subsidies. A lot of the affordable housing is built with tax credits or subsidies to help finance the construction of it, so that the people who own it can charge lower rents, and they sign a commitment to charge that lower rent for a certain length of time in return for getting that subsidy. So that's the way most affordable housing is built right now. But even that requires government vouchers for the very lowest income folks. And those were threatened to dry up under Trump, but the Congress saved them so far. We'll see what happens in the Congress. So the remedies recommended for having more affordable housing is to, one is to cut red tape, build more housing, just in the market rate stuff. That'll make people at the higher incomes have more choices. Another thing is to the direct investment, which comes a lot from the state. The state has a housing trust fund that can give subsidies, give grants to people who are building affordable housing that will be committed affordable, meaning the rents won't go up every year a lot, they'll go up a little bit. Another thing is to fight for more tenant rights, because people getting evicted all the time, often for trivial reasons, or sometimes they don't have the rent, but landlord won't give them time to get the rent together. Virginia has fairly weak tenant rights laws, and those need to be strengthened. Tenants need a better chance to stay housed. Preserving existing affordable housing is important. There's a lot of market rate housing that is old, and sometimes it's in danger of getting torn down through redevelopment areas. As Fairfax County, we're redeveloping a lot of our older areas, and what's in and around those older areas is a lot of older apartments that are currently market rate low income. So you have to, if you tear down the stuff that's affordable, you're going to be running in place by keeping to build more affordable. And another thing is fair housing. The federal government has pretty much gutted the Fair Housing Act, and they're not doing much to enforce it. They've defunded it. We still have some fair housing action in Fairfax County, but one of the governor candidates is committed to continue that at the state level. And that's very important. That's doing the testing of who's being rented to and who's not being rented to, who's getting a loan and who's not getting a loan, is really important to keep the mortgage companies and the landlords on their toes when that information comes out. It's still happening. There's still discrimination and all kinds of things, and we need to keep checking for it and publicizing it and punishing people who do it. At NAACP Fairfax, we do the whole range of housing, everything from homeless shelter. We did a big program to help alleviate we got the county. We do advocacy. We don't do service work. We do advocacy. We got the county to do a better job of helping homeless people in the extreme heat days and extreme heat periods by giving them more information about cooling centers, giving them bus tickets to get there, opening up all the homeless shelters so people could sleep on the floor if it's really, really hot, and a couple other things they've been doing for the last couple of years because of our instigation. We work with the tenant rights groups. We work with the mobile home coalition groups. I sit on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee to the county, which is mainly involved in figuring out how to produce more affordable housing. And we've also held a conference for people who want to buy a house for the first time and didn't know if they could ever do it or afford it. And we had real estate agent, a county person, and a civil rights expert coming in and talking about how to navigate that and how to find a deal and some subsidies to help buy a first-time house, which will help people build wealth over their lifetime and their family's lifetime. So those are all big issues, and this state election is really going to make a difference. There's one candidate, as I said, with no platform, and another candidate with a fairly decent platform. So it's something that people should think about and go vote.
Thank you, Mary. As always, everything about housing and affordable housing here in Fairfax County, you are the person to go to. Thank you so much. Up next, we will hear from Andrea, Theta, and who will be representing our Legal Redress Committee.
Thank you, Lenore. Good evening, everyone. My name's Theta. I'm a member of Fairfax NAACP Legal Redress. I'm also a member of the Housing Committee under Mary Payton. Today, I want to highlight 6 critical issues that are on the ballot in Virginia this year. First, we must establish a police civilian review panel in every Virginia jurisdiction. We have one here in Fairfax, and these panels are essential for ensuring police accountability, transparency. And when communities have a voice in oversight, trust is built and justice is better served. Second, we need a police co-responder program statewide. Mental health crises require more than just law enforcement turning up. They require compassion and expertise. Co-responders who are trained in mental health intervention can accompany officers and dramatically improve the outcomes in these very sensitive situations. Third, we must guarantee the right to counsel in civil cases. Civil actions can have consequences that are almost as dire as criminal cases, such as the loss of a child during custody or access to affordable housing. Yet many Virginians face these battles alone. Just as we have public defenders in criminal cases, we need similar support in civil matters. Here in Fairfax, we've seen some single Black mothers who are housing insecure, and some were able to find counsel and others fought evictions by themselves, only to find that the judge ruled against them. Therefore, we should have something akin to the public defender for civil matters of this nature. Fourth, it is time to end qualified immunity for law enforcement officers. No public official should be shielded from accountability when their actions are grossly negligent, reckless, or malicious. Justice must apply equally every time without exception. Fifth, we must repeal the Law Enforcement Officers Procedural Guarantee Act. This act provides much greater protections for law enforcement officers than the protections provided for the average citizen in similar situations. The protections unduly limit the ability to hold law enforcement officers accountable for their actions. And finally, we must fight for greater funding for our schools and protections for our marginalized students. This isn't just about dollars, it is about dignity. The recent withholding of federal funds has deeply impacted school districts across Virginia, including Fairfax County Public Schools. Programs that support multilingual learners, special education students, and even basic nutrition, so the free lunch or the free breakfast, those things are at risk. Quite simply, our babies are going to go hungry. In Fairfax alone, the withholding of funds has directly impacted children's lives. These funds help to feed the children. They help to provide essential literacy supports to students who are struggling readers and maintain essential services. This is unacceptable and we must act. After all, Virginia is for lovers, but shouldn't it also be for proficient readers? These reforms are very reasonable. They reflect our values, fairness, accountability, and care for our communities. So I'd like to say we could stand together and make Virginia a model for justice and equity. All of these points that have been brought up tonight are critically important, and I hope that everybody votes.
Thank you, Nira, for your wonderful presentation. And finally, you will hear from the Political Action Committee, and that is me. And I'm going to share my screen real quick. I just have a couple of slides I'd like to share with you and then say goodnight. Again, thank you all for joining us, and we appreciate your time and attention to these messages from all of our community partners and our branch committee chairs. As has been mentioned today, their early voting starts on September 19th through November 1st. You can find your location by visiting the Virginia Board of Elections to find out where those polling places that are open early are located. If you need to register to vote, if you're not done so yet, you may use this QR code, and I'm going to share all of these codes in our chat. If you so desire, you can use this code to register to vote. If you're not sure if you're registered to vote, if there have been any changes to your address, then you can use this QR code to determine if your registration is still valid. And finally, if you would like to get an absentee ballot, you may use this code to request an absentee ballot. Again, I'll have all of these codes in our chat in just a second. Just want to ask you to save the date for a couple of events that are going to be happening. We are planning a Virginia House of Delegates meet and greet on October 11th. We are going to invite all candidates who are in Fairfax County to attend this event. More details to follow. We are also planning a Souls to the Polls during the one Sunday in which polls will be open in Fairfax County, and that is October 26th. More details again to follow. And also, I wanted to share with you that the NAACP knows that Virginia is a very important state, and the results of this election are very important. They have provided through, I think I skipped a slide, let me go back, through the guides, through guides.vote, nonpartisan candidate resources, which you can get by using this link. Again, I'll provide that in the chat. And it provides the views of each of the candidates, and you can see that for yourself. Again, it is a nonpartisan voter guide. Again, I'd like to thank all of our speakers tonight. You all have just provided such great information for us all, and I'd like to thank everyone who came out to view it. And if there are any questions, I did not see any in the chat, but I am going to go ahead as promised and enter all of those links in the chat. So just give me a second. If you don't need them, then thank you again for joining us, and good night. Good night. Thank you all.